Welcome to our August webinar. Really excited about learning about current research studies from some wonderful professionals from UPMC. We're joined by Sherry Masosky, Dr. Sarah Berman, Dr. Deb Jaspino, and Dr. Lingler. Sherry will start off by giving us a quick research update, and then she'll delve right into some studies, and then we'll just move forward from there. All right, I'll hand it over to you, Sherry. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Casey, and thanks everyone so much for joining us. We are really excited to be here. Let me just make this full screen. Really appreciate everyone's time and interest in research. So like Casey said, I'm Sherry. I'm the Clinical Research Program Manager here in Neurology. I'm going to give you just a quick overview of research, and then I'm going to discuss 4 trials: the PPMI study, the TOPAZ study, PD generation, and then the research registry. Dr. Berman's going to jump on after me. She's going to talk about the Mito-PET study and the DLB Consortium. And then Dr. Jaspino is going to talk about the SPARX3 trial, and Dr. Lingler is going to talk about the RIDE-PD trial. All right, so just before we jump into the trials, I just want to give you just a quick overview about research. So research is really, really critical. It allows us to advance medical knowledge and uncover new treatments and hopefully eventually a cure for Parkinson's disease. So it's really, really important, and it's really valuable for you to participate in research. There should never be a cost for you to participate in research. It should always, always be voluntary, and you can leave a research study at any time for any reason without any consequences. You do not need to be a UPMC patient to be in any of our trials, and being in one of the studies does not replace your care with your other providers. So whoever your neurologist is, we would want you to continue seeing that neurologist. So you're going to have a study doctor, and then you're going to have your regular neurologist and your regular care team. They can talk to each other, tell each other, what's going on, but you always want your research study doctor to be separate from your regular PCP and your regular neurologist. That being said, sometimes they do overlap, but you don't need to leave your regular care team in order to be in a research study. Some people get a little bit confused about that, but just know, keep all of your normal office visits and your normal providers when you're in research studies. All right, so I'm going to dive right in. The first study I want to talk about is the PPMI clinical study. So that's the Parkinson's Progression Markers Initiative study. It is funded by the Michael J. Fox Foundation. Now, there's a lot of buzz about this study right now. You may have heard about it in the social media or on TV, or I know that they did a spread in AARP. So there's a lot of buzz about this study. The goal of this study is to collect data and samples from Parkinson's patients worldwide and share that data with researchers worldwide for the detection of early treatments and eventually a cure for Parkinson's disease. We have a new study a new site that just started in Africa. So we have sites all around the world. It's a worldwide study. It's really exciting, all of the data and information that they're trying to collect in this study. So the study has been going on for over 10 years now, and it's in the second phase of the study. So we're trying to get more people and just get more information, more data. To kind of give you an idea of the breadth and the impact of this study, there's been over 10 million data downloads. So the data is publicly available. And so that means that 10 million times researchers have gone to this site and they have downloaded the information. It's all de-identified. You don't have to worry about your name being out there. And they've looked at the data 10 million times. So that is really exciting. That's a lot of people looking at this information. And they've had over 200 requests for samples. So this would be 200 separate labs looking to test their assay or test their ideas on different samples and different data. And then there's been over 250 publications. So a lot of information is going into the study and coming out of this study. So participants in the clinical version of the study do need to be early in the disease course and not taking any Parkinson's medications. There's a couple of exceptions with that. And so folks, if you have a genetic variant, and you may or may not be taking medications, you may qualify for that study. So if you know you have a variant, you can let me know and we can kind of talk through that. Otherwise, we're looking for people early in the disease course, not taking any Parkinson's medications. And there's my name and phone number there if you want some more information about the PPMI study. I realize that a lot of you may not be eligible for that online or for that clinical version of it. So there is an online version. And this is great because everybody can be involved in this online component. And it's, like I said, it's online. So you don't have to worry about coming into the office, having any clinical visits, anything like that. There's some questionnaires that they will send to you quarterly, and just fill out the questionnaires. And that allows them to collect health information from people with and without Parkinson's disease, again, worldwide, to better understand risk and predictive factors of Parkinson's disease. So we're looking to enroll 500,000 people globally. So a huge, huge number. And again, just to get more information about Parkinson's and try to move the field forward and, get us closer to that end goal there of a cure. So this is the website here. I know it's kind of long. It's on a study flyer that I've given to Casey, and she's going to distribute the study flyers to everyone along with the slides for the presentations today. So this is what that website looks like. So if you go onto that website, this is what it looks like. You can get more information, and then you just punch in your email address, and then you can get started getting those questionnaires sent to you every couple of months. And you can, not participate at one time or another, and it's not going to affect your participation throughout the study. So if it's not a good time for you, you don't always have to fill them out. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the TOPAZ study. And I know I'm moving through these kind of quickly. We do have a lot of material to cover, but like I said, we're going to give you the slides. You'll have my name and contact information, so you can always give me a call or email me, and we can talk a little bit more about the studies that you're interested in. So this is the TOPAZ study, and it's looking at zolendric acid, and it is sponsored by the Parkinson's Foundation. So this is a study to prevent hip fractures. We know that people with Parkinson's disease have a high risk of fracture. It's usually from multiple falls. We know that 10 to 14% of people with Parkinson's disease do have a fracture each year. So we're looking at zoledronate. It is an FDA-approved medication, and it's given through IV, and it's given for osteoporosis. It improves bone density and reduces fractures. And they've actually had overall reductions in mortality. So just dying from anything in general have been found in this study as well. And one infusion can last about 2 years. So in order to be eligible, you have to have Parkinson's disease. You have to be at least 60, have had no prior hip fracture, and not taking any treatment for osteoporosis. So this is another home-based trial. So this is really nice because you can just do this all from your house and online. You don't have to worry about coming into the clinic for this particular trial. So there is a consent form and a brief eligibility questionnaire that you'll have to do online. That takes about 15-20 minutes. And there's a little code that you have to put in that I'll give to you. And that code is going to link you back to our site and to our study doctor, Dr. Lana Shaheen. And then she can confer with your neurologist and PCP, just like I mentioned that they do before, they talk to each other, just to carefully measure and ensure your safety. So after that is done, then you'll have a visit by a research nurse. She's going to take a look at your mouth and just look for sores and any, chance of getting sores. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. She's also going to do a quick finger stick, and she's going to check your kidney function. And then she's going to give you an IV infusion of either the zolendric acid or the placebo. So you have a 50-50 chance of getting one or the other. And you won't know, and we won't know what you're getting. It's like a flip of a coin. And she's also going to give you some Tylenol, and that's just going to prevent any reactions that you may have. And then you're going to get a card, an email, or a phone call from us about every 4 months. And that's just going to be checking for fractures. And that will go on for about 3 years. So you'll get $100 an enrollment and then $50 for each of those follow-up visits. So side effects, you might get some aches and pains and some fever that should go away pretty quickly. There is a chance that you'll get a sore on your gums. That's why we have the nurse taking a really good look at your gums and just making sure that you're not at risk of that. And then there is a very, very slight risk of developing a femur fracture from this medication. But just to give you some context, Parkinson's patients have about a 1 in 20% chance of having a hip fracture in 2 years. So your chance of having a fracture from the medication is very, very small considering your risk overall. So this is what the study platform looks like. The website's at the top, and then that's that code number, PIT-PSG, and that's just going to link you back to our site so Dr. Shaheen can then talk with your neurologist and just verify your eligibility and safety for the trial. So there's a little study or a little video that you can watch whenever you go on the website, and then you can get more information and join the study from there. All right, the next one is PD generation. Now, some of you may know about this one already. I know that the Parkinson's Foundation just did a webinar about this, so you may have actually already seen the webinar. So some of it might be redundant information or a nice overview or review. Okay, so this is getting genetic testing and genetic counseling at no cost for people with Parkinson's disease. Now, this is really nice because there's no placebo arm here or anything like that. If you do this study, you will get your genetic results. And that's going to hopefully help you to better manage your Parkinson's disease, help scientists advance the understanding of Parkinson's disease, improve care and research and enrollment in clinical trials, and then aid in the development of new treatments, and then, personalized medicine for Parkinson's disease. So this is what the website looks like. The website is on the left side there, parkinson.org/PD generation. You have a couple of different options here. That top orange rectangle there is enroll now. And if you do that, you can just enroll right online. You don't really have to go through a whole bunch of different steps. If you feel like you want to talk to somebody and talk through the consenting process, then you can schedule an appointment. And I did see that they even have some appointments available this month, so they do have some availability. So you can click that schedule now button and look at the calendar and see what's going to work for you, or you can hit that top button there, that enroll now button, and then if you hit that top button, that enroll now, this is the site that it's going to take you to. So there's a little video that they want you to watch. You watch the video, and then there's an electronic consent form. You can kind of walk through the consent form and then sign it at the bottom whenever you're done if you don't have any questions. And they do give their contact information, so you can contact them if you have any questions. So here is sort of the process laid out. So there's the consent form that we just talked about. And then once that's completed, you'll receive a cheek swab in the mail. And then it's pretty easy. You just kind of rub it on your cheek, put it back in the mail. They'll give you a postage paid envelope. And then it'll take a couple of months so you get your results. And then you'll be contacted by the counselor, and the counselor is going to walk through the results with you. And they'll give you a very nice detailed letter explaining your results and, some sort of like implications and what that means for you. And then you can share those results with your regular care team if you would like. Okay, so that is PD generation. And now we're going to move on to the research registry. So the research registry is just the movement disorders research registry here in neurology at the University of Pittsburgh, UPMC. And being a part of this registry just allows you to get information about the trials that we have here about movement. So you're not going to be getting a bunch of phone calls about random studies that have nothing to do with you. There is no obligation to be in any studies. It's simply a list of people who are interested in research that we can then contact in the future and say, hey, we have a new study coming up. Do you want to hear about it? Doesn't automatically enroll you in it or obligate you to anything. It just allows us to contact you in the future and let you know that we have a new study starting. So our studies vary. You know, we can have a phone survey, we can have an online survey, we can have drug trials, we can have another type of treatment or device trial. So it really varies. And again, it will all be your choice if you want to participate in any of those studies. Again, like I said before, all of the studies are voluntary and you can leave the studies at any time for any reason. So anybody of any age can join the research registry. It's very movement focused. So most of our registry is for folks that have movement disorders, but we do have some healthy controls in there of people who are just interested in helping out if they, want to be acting as a healthy control. Like I mentioned before, your neurologist and PCP do not have to be a part of UPMC to be in the research registry or to be in any of the studies here. So in order to enroll, it's all done remotely. So there's no office visits. We can give you a link to look at the consent form online, or we can mail it to you, and then we can follow up with you over the phone. But again, no office visits. So you would just review the consent form, answer some basic information about yourself and your movement disorder, and then we will call you annually just to make sure that your contact information is still accurate. And then give you any calls if there's new studies that start up. So Dina is leading this trial here. Her name and contact information is there. You can also contact me if you want more information about it. All right, I know I threw a lot of information out at you. My contact information is here. You can contact me at any time if you want more information on any of the trials, or if you have any, specific questions about anything or any upcoming trials or anything like that. Feel free to reach out to me. All right, so now we're going to hold other questions till the very end of all of the presentations. So now I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Berman. She's one of our neurologists here, and she is very active in clinical trials.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Let's see. Okay. Sorry. Okay, everybody can see that? Yeah, okay. Hi, as you said, I'm Dr. Berman. So I may know some of you guys from various things, and I'm going to tell you about two projects quickly. And I just want to say that I'm not going to be here at the end for questions. So if you do have questions and Sherry can't answer them, she will find me and I can always get back to you on that. And the first study, it deals with a specific problem, and that's a problem in the clinical trials for Parkinson's disease. And one of the problems in these trials, we're working on medicines that can really slow down the disease instead of just treating the symptoms. And one of the problems is that not a problem, but Parkinson's disease progresses slowly. So it can really be a long time before we know if a medication is protective. Is it slowing down the disease? And that makes the clinical trials, move pretty slowly. And so one of the questions that and many people are interested in, how do trials of these potentially protective Parkinson's medicines, how can we monitor this in a way that is that is more quickly in a more timely manner, whether it's protecting those brain cells, is it having the kind of effect that we want without waiting to see the progression over a long time? And to do that, we really need a way to monitor the earliest changes in those brain cells that are affected in Parkinson's disease. And we want this to be a marker of something that's reversible. So if we see a change and then we give a medicine, can we monitor the improvement in that? And what this study is dealing with is a potential, what we call a brain imaging biomarker. And basically that's something where we can take a picture of the brain using one of our imaging techniques, in this case, a PET scan, and try to look at these changes and see if it fits, if it is one of the earliest changes in Parkinson's disease. Do we see a change? Could we maybe use this to monitor, and could that help us understand the disease? So this focuses on something called mitochondria, and mitochondria are these small organelles that some of you may be familiar with. They're in every single cell in our body, and we consider them the powerhouse of the cell. They're the organelles that produce the energy for our cells. And in Parkinson's disease, the brain cells affected by Parkinson's disease really rely on these mitochondria for energy. And we know this is important because some of the genetic causes of Parkinson's, as you know, there's rarely genetic mutations that directly cause Parkinson's disease. Most of those, almost all of them, work on mitochondria in some way. So we know that this is important in Parkinson's disease. And from work that was originally done by Tim Greenemeyer here before he was here at the PIN, is that if we block mitochondria in animal models, in every single cell in the body, they get what looks very much like Parkinson's disease. So there's a lot of reasons why we know that this is important, or we think that this is important. So we think that these changes are one of the earliest changes in the cells that are affected in Parkinson's disease. And we know this from a lot of studies. And we think this happens before these cells are irreversibly damaged. So this is a potential way to look at this biomarker for studies. But we've never been able to look at this in people unless we take out a piece of brain tissue. We've never been able to do that before. But if we could, this might be a way to help us monitor these Parkinson's disease trials early and look for changes. And so this study, this is a pilot study that deals with a new PET. You may be familiar with PET studies. I won't go into the details on this, but if people who have had cancer or sometimes use PET studies with a different tracer, what we call a tracer, which is when you get a small amount of a radioactive substance that binds to something specific. And for cancer, they use a different tracer. This is a new tracer that attaches to a specific mitochondrial structure that's been linked to Parkinson's disease. So specifically, it's called complex 1. And the Michael J. Fox Foundation, for the reasons that I mentioned, was interested in looking at this. And so they funded this pilot study that I'm calling the Mito-PET study. It's a brain imaging study. And it's to look at this new potential PET marker to potentially aid in early detection and progression of both Parkinson's disease and something you may be familiar with that's related, Lewy body dementia. And so participants who would like to volunteer will have to be between 40 and 85. And I point out, we're not just looking for people with Parkinson's disease or Lewy body dementia, but we also need healthy control participants who don't have either of those diseases. So if you know anyone or have family members who are interested in research, that's a possibility too. And it's usually 2 visits, could be 3, and it's 2 procedures: a brain MRI that we just use. It's a short MRI, but one that we use to help us see the anatomy, and then this PET scan, which is like a CT scan, except that they inject the tracer and it's done here. And there's compensation. We know, as Sherry mentioned, we know how difficult this is for people to come in and give of their time, and the Michael J. Fox Foundation knows that. So there is compensation for the time that you have. We provide transportation, including sedan pickup, to make it, and we can pick you up at your house. We can bring you here, bring you back, so you don't have to fight the Oakland parking, which most people hate. And if you're interested, that's the number to call. And I think you'll have copies of these. So you can call Patricia at this number or contact Sherry and she can get you in touch with us also. That's the first study. The second study I'm going to mention here is the Dementia with Lewy Bodies Consortium study. And Sherry mentioned the PPMI study, which is a huge study looking at Parkinson's disease. This is also a national study with multiple sites, but looking specifically at dementia with Lewy bodies. And I bring this up not only because of dementia with Lewy bodies, but also people with what's called Parkinson's disease dementia may also be able to participate in this. And this is 9 centers across the country, including ours. We're one of the centers here. And this is more of a longitudinal study. So it's not a treatment trial or anything. It's a long study over years to really monitor clinical data, biomarker data, imaging, fluids like blood and spinal fluid to really understand the disease, similar to what she described in the PPMI. And that's really we're very far behind in terms of dementia with Lewy bodies compared to Parkinson's disease in our knowledge. So this is really has the goal to support better clinical research, discover biomarkers that will be useful in clinical trials for dementia with Lewy bodies and Parkinson's disease dementia. And if you're interested in hearing more about this, Carrie Zick is our clinical research coordinator. That's the number there. And you can contact that, or again, contact Sherry and she'll get you in touch with that. And that's it for me. And Sherry, I forget who's next.
I think I am, Dr. Berman. So let me just set up here and get this guys going for us all. Here's this. And all right. Hi, everybody. I'm Deb Jasvino, and I want to really thank you all for taking time to come out here on this afternoon to listen to us talk about research, which is ever so important. I'm a physical therapist, and I'm also on faculty at the University of Pittsburgh in the Department of Physical Therapy. And today I'm just going to give you a quick snapshot of a clinical trial called the Study in Parkinson's Disease of Exercise, which we refer to as SPARX3. So let me describe SPARX3 to you briefly. And this is a clinical trial research study where our goal is to learn more about the benefits of aerobic exercise for individuals with Parkinson's disease who have not yet started PD medication. And it's very important for this study that people have not started medication for Parkinson's disease because the effects of medication can potentially confound the results. And what we're really interested in this study is looking at how exercise affects Parkinson's disease. So this is a 24-month study. We have an 18-month intervention and a 6-month observation follow-up period. And what we're going to do is for those first 18 months is the individuals will be tightly supervised and provided a lot of support in performing an aerobic-based treadmill exercise at either a moderate intensity or a vigorous intensity. And they'll be exercising 4 times a week for 18 months that is supervised. And then we're also going to follow them for those 6 months to see if they continue on exercising, because we want to look also at adherence and how individuals exercise when the support is taken away from them. This study is a large study. It spans across 29 sites across the United States and in Canada. And we plan on enrolling 370 participants. And this is funded by the NIH. So for this study, we need volunteers to be between the ages of 40 to 80 years of age, diagnosed with Parkinson's disease within the last 3 years, so early diagnosed. And again, as I stated, not currently taking Parkinson medication or expecting to start Parkinson medication within the next year. Volunteers will also need to be able and willing to participate in exercise. This is an exercise intervention, and they need to be willing to participate in either moderate or high intensity exercise on a treadmill. And again, the exercise intervention is for both groups 4 times a week for 18 months of supervised exercise, but then we're going to follow you for an additional 6 months. So for a 24-month period, and then you'll be attending periodic assessments throughout those 24 months. It's a little side note here too, is that the methods for completing your exercise sessions, which are all treadmill dependent, we'll provide ways for you to do it depending on your preference. We offer exercise in our PT gym at the physical therapy department at University of Pittsburgh. We offer ways to do it through a local gym, and if needed, providing a treadmill. So there's options for you, for individuals to maintain their exercise. Also, volunteers will have to travel to the University of Pittsburgh periodically for study-related activities. So what's our research procedures for SPARX3? Well, to determine eligibility, first you'll complete a telephone screen with our coordinator, and then that will be followed by 2 in-person visits. And that again is still part of our screen to confirm that you meet the criteria for our study. And the activities that you would be doing during the screen are questionnaires to collect information about your health history, your medical background, thinking, memory skills, and depression. You'll also have a physical exam by our study neurologist, a blood draw, and a brain scan. In this case, it's the DAT scan. So if you're eligible to participate, you'll still have some assessments to do, and you'll be asked to complete 7 additional assessment visits over the course of the 24 months. And just in general, these are, again, more physical exams by the study neurologist, questionnaires about your well-being. You'll have a blood draw performed, exercise test, and there will be 1 additional DAT scan at 12 months. For the intervention portion of the study, you'll be randomized. And again, that's like Sherry said, flipping a coin. You'll have a 50% chance to be randomized into 1 of 2 treatment groups. And the treatment groups are the exercise mode is the same. You'll be doing walking activity on a treadmill. Both groups will be asked to exercise for 30 minutes plus a 5-minute warm up and a 5-minute cool down 4 times a week. And what is different is you will be randomized either to what we're calling a moderate intensity exercise group, which is where you'll be asked to exercise at 30 minutes at 60 to 65% of your heart rate max. And that's an example of that is while you're on the treadmill, walking, doing the activity, you're going to be able to carry on a conversation, but not be able to sing. And then the other intervention arm is what we're calling the high intensity arm. And those individuals will be exercising at an intensity of 80 to 85% of their maximum heart rate. And again, example of that is while on the treadmill, you'll have difficulty both singing and talking while doing this activity for that 30-minute time frame. I think it's important also to note that both exercise arms are beneficial for people. It's been well established that exercise is good, and we're just trying to see look at the different intensities throughout this exercise intervention. So we are right now actively recruiting. We've just started working on the study, and we're actively recruiting. And if you want more information, because the study is quite complex, if you want more information, please feel free to contact Christine McFarland. She's our coordinator. There's her number and also her email for you. But also, Casey will be sending you out our flyer and these slides, which will have all the information on it as you need for that. And we'll be happy to further discuss more about this exercise program. And I want to thank you for the little snippet for our study here. And I'm going to pass the baton off, and I'll be happy to answer questions at the end.
Super. So my name is Jennifer Lingler. Oops, and I am from the School of Nursing at the University of Pittsburgh, and I'm excited to tell you a little about a study that we are undertaking in collaboration with colleagues from neurology, actually Sherry, who you heard from first, and Dr. Lana Shaheen. This is called Recruitment Innovations for Diversity Enhancement in Parkinson's Disease Research. So let me break that down for you. I'm just going to walk you through a little bit about why we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish, where we currently are in this process, and where we're hoping to go. So there's a lot of text on this slide, but as you may or may not be aware, it so happens that much of the clinical research on Parkinson's disease is limited to individuals who identify as Caucasian, so non-Hispanic Caucasians, or as we in America generally refer to many of ourselves, myself included, white folks. And there are a lot of important reasons to try to increase racial and ethnic diversity in research on Parkinson's disease. This slide calls this a pervasive challenge, and that means that a number of different efforts to try to overcome this challenge have been attempted over the years. But the challenge is pervasive in that many of the different recruitment initiatives have just not resulted in more diverse populations and studies. So the idea with this study is to try something new, something different. This is work that we started actually in recruiting for studies focused on Alzheimer's disease and are now moving into try to extend that work in Parkinson's disease. So this really builds on a tradition of storytelling that's common in many cultures and represents an important way to transfer important information or relate important information. So our study is trying to honor that tradition because we know it's strong, again, I said in many cultures, but including African-American subculture in the United States. And there's some evidence that using narrative or storytelling can actually help to have a positive impact on people's health behaviors. What's new and different about this approach is we're not trying to influence someone's health behavior per se, but we're trying to promote or inspire interest in participating in research. So as I said, we've started this work in Alzheimer's and are now expanding to Parkinson's. So Dr. Berman showed you an organelle. I have a theoretical model here. So it's super busy, lots of information on this slide, but this is just basically breaking down the kind of reasoning behind the approach or the theory behind it. And the idea is essentially that if we can identify stories that have very personally engaging elements and have some element of cultural resonance, that those might be effective in altering how people think and believe and have attitudes toward a given idea and ultimately lead to behavior change. So in our case, that would be attitudes toward research. We know with the African-American community, for example, there are lots of issues with trust. So we're trying to use trusted voices and representatives to overcome that barrier. And then this in-between column represents the idea that, of course, we have to get these personally engaging stories out to people in ways that are sort of sticky, in ways that will help people to identify with the story and to spread it ideally onto others. So how we're doing this, and again, this slide points to our approach in Alzheimer's and then where we are in Parkinson's, is that we're gathering those stories first. So we have a first process of gathering stories from people who identify as Black or African-American and either have Parkinson's disease or have had someone important in their life who's had Parkinson's. And we're looking at people who both have participated in research and those who have never participated in research, following the model we used for Alzheimer's. And then we really use an approach that's been developed by anthropologists called ethnographic analysis, where we take kind of a culturally tailored approach to understanding people's stories. And we're using those to develop a set of materials that we can use to advertise for studies, essentially. So this is a little bit about what those materials kind of looked like when we did this for Alzheimer's disease. And let's see how we're doing on time. It could take 1 minute to show you a little piece of a video from the Alzheimer's study, just to show you what that looks like. Do that for you here. I'm just going to show the first minute of this video.
I belong to Central Baptist Church, and we have a seniors program there. And the chairperson let us know that we were going to have a speaker from the Alzheimer's disease research program. She presented what is normal aging, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, is this normal aging what I'm going through? And I wanted to learn more about what was going on now with my mind, that now that I'm over 60. I felt a change in me, mentally and physically. I feel that the information was there, that I could go to it and get help. I made up in my mind that I was going to do that. The staff, they just all put me at ease. I went through a physical, as they say, from head to toe. I guess the most challenging was when I was doing the tests. I found out through this that I was experiencing and still experiencing short-term memory loss. I didn't feel dumb. I didn't feel embarrassed. And I know that I can call them if I'm having a problem, and they will answer me. That's
So that was just a little glimpse into that. Go ahead and resume here. So that's exactly what we're trying to do now in Parkinson's disease. So where we are in our Parkinson's project is actually the very first initial stages. And our goal was to interview about 12 individuals, again, people with Parkinson's or their family caregivers. We're doing these over Zoom. They take about 45 minutes to an hour. We are specifically looking for people who identify as Black or African American, and we've got just 6 more folks to identify. So we're about halfway through. So if you have anyone in your network who has a personal experience with Parkinson's and identifies as Black or African American, we would love the opportunity to interview them over Zoom. That will be recorded and will become part of the analysis that's used to develop the materials for Parkinson's disease. This is our current study flyer and is included in this slide set, and we can make other copies available if you happen to be networked with folks who might be interested in a project like this. This is our team, and we need to update our photo to get, this is mostly our AD team. We need to update this to get our really valued collaborators from the Parkinson's side pictured as well. Thanks so much for the opportunity to tell you a little about this work.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Thanks so much for listening to us throughout the whole process here. I see you came back on, Casey. Sorry, I just jumped
Yes,
on because
I was frozen.
I figured something was going on there tech-wise, so I figured I
Yeah.
would just jump in there. So go
Thank
ahead,
you.
I'll pass it back over to
Oh,
you.
this was wonderful. As Sherry mentioned and the other presenters, if you have questions, now is your time. You can either type it in the chat box or you can unmute yourself and ask it.
Well, people are thinking, I'll ask my colleagues, how do you deal with situations where people are interested in or eligible for more than one study?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking that. This is Sherry again. Yeah, so occasionally we do have studies that they have, people can be eligible for multiple studies. For the PPMI study, that is really, really nice because that allows dual enrollment. So you can be in the PPMI study and in the SPARX3 study at the same time. And the data, they can share the data with both studies, so you don't have to get that DAT scan done for this study and the DAT scan done for that study. So that's really, really a nice feature of the PPMI study. Some of the other studies, the TOPAZ study, that one shouldn't have any implications that would prevent you from being in other studies. A lot of times they'll say you have to wait a little bit of time if you get a study medication or something like that before you can enroll into another study. It kind of depends on the particular study. But yeah, it's always your choice. If you're eligible for 2 different studies that you can't participate in both at the same time, You know, sometimes if you want to talk to your family about it, you want to look at the burden of the study. What is the study going to make me do? You know, what am I going to have to do for the study? How many study visits are there? And then, you know, any compensation in terms of traveling and meals and stuff, that can be really important if you're coming from a distance or if you can't drive in Oakland. Most of the studies do cover you know, either a taxi or an Uber, or at the very least pay for your parking and that kind of stuff. But that's a consideration for any trial, just to consider what the burden is and the obligation. Because as researchers, the last thing we want to do is enroll somebody and they didn't quite understand everything that was going to be involved in the trial. And then once they get in here and get started, they're like, this is too much for me. I don't know, I don't think I can handle all of this, and then, you know, back out halfway through the trial. That's totally fine if that happens. Everything, you know, things come up and that sort of thing happens, but we would want you to know what's going to happen in the whole trial, and to just have all of the considerations in mind before you sign up for a trial. So that's all part of the consenting process.
It looks like we have a question in the chat. Will study results be shared with you if you participate?
I see a question there. Will study results be shared with you if you participate? That's another great question. That is really study dependent. Some of the studies do share it with you and some of them don't. I don't recall off the top of my head, Deb, do you, that's called unblinding. Do we unblind in SPARX3? I can't quite remember.
It depends on what we're sharing we need to keep it
Oh,
consistent.
hold on, we can't hear you, Deb. I don't know what
I'm
happened
sorry,
there.
can you hear me now? I'm unmuted. Yeah, we do share some results, but some
No, we can't hear you. I'm not sure. We didn't have any problems before.
Oh no.
I'm able to hear you. Anybody else?
Hear you fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So it depends on what we're sharing.
Oh, okay. It looks like some
Need to
people
let
can
them
hear.
know about
Okay.
what heart
That's
rate,
great.
what your heart rate is, and what we achieved during the test, so they know where their zone is on where they're going with that. And then at the end, it depends on we'll be giving them the how they do in their exercise at the end.
Great. Any other questions? We might be having some technical issues.
Yeah, I think David's trying to ask a question.
Okay.
I can't really hear it though. Do you want to type it in the chat, David?
And in the meantime, if anyone else has questions.
Sherry.
I think we're just waiting for a question to come up in the chat from David.
I think there's a question.
Oh.
Has there been any research on medications?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Slow the disease? A question from the chat.
I think Sherry lost her audio.
I just got it back. I don't know what
Okay.
happened, but I think I got it back. Okay. I just heard the tail end of that there was a question. If you want to repeat that, I could try to answer if that's directed towards me.
Yeah, the question is, has there been any research on medications that slow the disease?
Yeah, there are a lot of a lot of trials sort of in the pipeline. We did just have the SPARC trial, and that was considered, you know, disease modifying. And that one unfortunately did not show a benefit. So that one was stopped. We don't currently have any disease modifying trials at the moment. I know that there's a couple coming down the line that could potentially be disease modifying. So if you want to get into the research registry, that allows us to reach out to you and let you know if there's a new study that has started. I know that the disease modifying trials are, you know, really exciting, and you know, folks really want to be a part of those. So yeah, if you want to join the research registry, that allows us to reach out to you and connect you when those trials do start. But if you look at clinicaltrials.gov, that's another great website. I can put it in the chat here. Clinicaltrials.gov. That will tell you all of the trials that are available, like nationwide. That's a federal law that all research studies have to be listed on this website. So you can kind of look and see what's available in your area. If there's other trials in Pittsburgh that maybe I'm not aware of, or we're not aware of, that, or even further out, if you're willing to travel, you might find other trials that you can qualify for. So I'll put that in the chat.
I had a question about the SPARX trial. Just specifically, for example, when you're using the DAT, correct, in order to screen people for them to be in the trial. But I'm curious, it's not them coming in with a pre-DAT screening. You would screen them with the DAT using your own testing, correct?
That is somewhat correct. We can also use the PPMI, where we can share with that. But yes, we do have our own criteria.
Right.
Oh, great question. So, but we do go across the studies too. So you can do.
I guess more specifically, I'm just curious, like if the person has been diagnosed already with a DAT, but then yours shows that they don't have it, for example, is that information able to be shared with their doctor? That happened to someone I know, that's why. So
Yeah. We're in close contact with your neurologist. Our study neurologist is.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point that you bring up, is that and I do believe Sherry even talked about this too, is that we have you'll have a study neurologist that will be overseeing the study portion, but it is not in place of your neurologist in your care. So great question.
Thank you. We have time for one more question if you have one. Well, this was wonderful. I will look forward to sharing the slides and all the study flyers with you. Thank you so much for joining, and we hope to see you again soon. And a special thanks to all the wonderful presenters from UPMC and the University of Pittsburgh.
Thank you all. Thanks for having us, Casey. We appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.